Hi, thank you for watching Podiatry Practice Mastery. I appreciate you showing interest in these videos, and they're coming out weekly, and I hope you have interest in them. Underneath this video, you're going to find some other resources based on the topics we've addressed. Also, we're putting together some group sessions you might be interested in. If you want to have more information of kind of developing and being part of a podiatry community where we talk about practice management ideas, I'd love for you to join us at the next one. The information is underneath this video. Thank you so much. I have Dr. Dean Dorfman here. He is a podiatrist in Florida. Welcome, Dean. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Dean, you're kind of like a shockwave master, I would call you, because you've been doing it for a long time, and you're an early adopter to this technology. Tell me about your story with shockwave and how it's kind of changed over the years.
All right, so probably the thing that got me involved with shockwave is I was using the original shockwave with the Curemetics. What was before Curemetics? It was the Oscitron, and I kind of read up on it a little bit, and it came to our area, and they were certifying certain doctors to do it. So I did it, and I was doing it in an outpatient facility, basically under anesthesia. And I liked the whole concept of shockwave. It worked pretty well. That was the original shockwave, which was kind of retrofitted for podiatry. It was basically the lithotripsy type machines that they would bring into the surgical centers or the hospitals. So I did that for a couple of years, and it worked very well. It was the typical way you would do it and then wait 3 months to see the results. What happened was, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, I suffered from plantar fasciitis myself. I was quite an avid runner. So I started out with the conventional stuff that we did, orthotics, cortisone injections, anti-inflammatories, and I just couldn't get rid of it. It was in my left heel, and it was just brutal. And I got the 5 cortisone shots, and I always tell my patients never more than 3. And I was just actually contemplating one day doing local anesthesia and doing an in-step fasciotomy in my office on myself at the time. That's how crazy I was. So anyway, one of the reps that actually was part of the Oscitron came in and said that they had, but it was another company. It was called Medispec at the time. So it was a very early adapter EPAT machine. Mm-hmm. And he came in and he said, oh, I got this new machine, and it's kind of a tabletop unit. We can bring it into your office. Works great. And I said to him, I'll tell you what, I've got wicked plantar fasciitis. If it works on my heel, I'll buy you a machine. So what happened was he said, okay, I'll leave it for you, which was smart on his behalf. He left it me he said, I'll leave it for you for 30 days. Did the 4 treatments on myself, but I also grabbed about 10 patients that were suffering from plantar fasciitis and said, look, no money, no charge. I just need you to help me participate in this small study. I want you to give me treatments, but you got to promise me that you'll stick with it. So 9 of the 10 stuck with it, including myself, and amazing how I saw the effects of EPAT. And I was like, wow, I'm starting to feel better, and I'm starting to feel better. And before you gone in probably 3 to 4 months, a typical scenario that we still see right now. It took about 3-4 months to get to the point where I was able to run and not getting up every morning, limping out of bed or walking around or not wanting to enjoy the everyday enjoyments of my life. So I bought his machine. And that was my first machine. It was a Medispec. I think it was an Israeli company. It really wasn't the most efficient machine. It only had 1 setting, but it was working. And I was getting crazy results with it. And I started to see, wow, this is a great concept. This is a great alternative than the typical, what all my colleagues are doing. They're giving shots and they're injecting, or they're putting them on anti-inflammatories, or putting them in a boot. But I'm actually getting results and I'm healing people. So I used the machine for quite a while. And then one of the reps from, I don't believe it was Curemetics, but it was the store's machine. I used to see him at all the conferences, and he'd go, well, you need to use our machine. It's a much better machine. And he would really always kind of beat up on the Medispec machine. You know, it's not an efficient machine. It's really not shockwave. And I was like, I'm not comfortable with the way you're approaching it. Mm-hmm. Because he was kind of really beating up on the other company, and I was getting results with it. So I never really listened to him until somebody else took his position, who I had a lot of respect for. And that person came in, brought in the stores machine. And the stores machine, by far, is a much more powerful machine, has a lot of bells and whistles on it. You can adjust the various different degrees of intensity. So he was also very, very good salesman. He took it on a $5,000 credit. I was able to buy the machine. Since then, I'm on my 3rd generation of the machines because they've advanced over time. But talk about return on investment, incredible return on investment. So, contemplating the first machine that was maybe about $15,000, $17,000. The second stores machine was somewhere in the $27,000, $30,000 range. The return on investment in 6 months, maybe sooner, I was paying the thing off. So I was amazed on the profit margin that these things were making. But more importantly, getting great results with patients, and people like, wow, this guy's doing something different that everybody else isn't doing. So that worked I've been doing it, I'm going to say probably since 2007. So we're going on about 13 years now. So loved the machine, found really some great opportunities to use it for, and then started marketing the practice, started realizing I love this stuff. I've always been a sports medicine guy, always wanted to turn my practice more into sports medicine, wanted to get away from the nail care and the other things that were in the practice. Again, doing it for 32 years, I wanted to do something a little different, but I wanted to be different than everybody else. I decided that I wanted to market it, and this is the direction I wanted to go. So probably within the last 5 years, bringing in a partner that was more of a surgically oriented partner. He wanted to do more of the surgery. I like doing the sports medicine. I started venturing out and getting more of the sports medicine type of practice. So we marketed it through the internet, through signage on our office. We have a nice medical office. We have a big, on a very big fairway. So we're able to put heel pain, shockwave, those type of things. Going out and marketing to the shoe stores, marketing to some of the athletes in the area. I was fortunate, again, 32 years of practice, a lot of people in the area. I was also very fortunate to be able to get the athletes, the local athletes, to buy in, and a lot of the trainers and a lot of the triathlete trainers and things like that. So when they started coming in, they got on board, and a couple of times I did some free treatments for them because they were having issues like calcific insertional tendonitis and things like that. So I was able to kind of help these guys, and they saw the benefits of it, and word of mouth has just exploded. Wow. So, word of mouth is the key thing. If you can get these people to really adapt it, but I'm passionate about it because it worked on me. And knowing it worked on me, I know exactly what they're going to expect and their expectations. And when they do come in, I always present it as an option. I never go right after it. So when somebody comes in, let's say let's use plantar fasciitis as an example. Somebody comes in with plantar fasciitis. My first approach is I explain the mechanics and why they have plantar fasciitis, and usually go into some detail in the elasticity of the plantar fascia. And now you're a 50-year-old athlete and you're running, you got a flat foot or you're overweight, you're putting overload on this structure that normally was very elastic, and now it's not elastic anymore. So you're creating these small little micro tears, and I use a foot model to describe it for them. They get the kind of aha, the bell goes on, and then I explain to them. So we can approach it from an anti-inflammatory point of view with injections and anti-inflammatory medications, good shoes, preventing you from going barefoot, and there are various things, like if they hadn't had anything done. Sometimes people will show up and they've had multiple injections, or they've read about me on Google, and they're like, no, I need another alternative. The other guy's not helping me. So it works both ways. With the new patient, I always talk about the conservative, and then I tell them what I would do. I said, in an honest way, I said, look, your insurance covers me to put an injection in your foot. It covers your office visit today and your x-ray today. It doesn't cover, and I go right at it with them. I tell them that this is a non-covered service. We do it all the time. I've been doing it for 17 years. I personally would say, I know the numbers show 75 to 80%. I can tell you that because of my experience with it, and because of my tenacity with it, and don't give up with patients. Sometimes they're not going to all fit in that 4 to 5 treatment range. But if you can convince them to stick along with it and give them the time and let them realize that it takes time, they'll stick with you. I've had people with 8, 9 treatments, and they're very happy, and they do really, really well in the end. So the key is to kind of get them on board. And then once they start seeing the benefits of it, they jump on and they're excited about it. But I'll approach it on the first visit. And some people say, no, I would prefer to do that. I can't tell you how many people you would never expect them to be able to say, let's do that right away. But they're like, no, I don't like shots, or no, I read about this and I want to do this, or I don't want to take medications. And they jump on board and they do it. And we do, I can't tell you, at least the minimum 15 to 20 heel pain tendonitis patients, whatever. We're using it for Achilles tendon. And I'll get into high focus shockwave also, because we've just added that about a year and a half ago. But I may be getting ahead of myself. But we use it for so many different things.
Yeah, I know you said you're doing it on, because you guys have a bigger scope than in other states. Let's talk about in terms of the foot and ankle. Are you using it, let's say, 80% of the time for plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis? Is that normally what you're using it, or for metatarsal?
I would say that's the majority of what we do. I have found it works really great for that sub-second capsulitis, metatarsalgia, the crossover toe. When you see the patients with the, especially the females that have that drifting second digit, where the plantar plate might be injured or torn. Those kind of people do really, really well with that type of, with the low and high energy shockwave. What it does is it actually, I tell them it's not going to reduce the overlapping of the toe. I mean, if they've advanced to the point where they need a while osteotomy or something like that, from the cosmetic point of view, we'll discuss that. But it works great for that. We're using it for neuromas, which I've seen really good results with that. So again, we start with the conventional cortisone injection with neuromas and orthotics and shoes. But if that's not responding, I give them that option before we destroy the nerve or we remove the nerve. I said, okay, so there's another option now. We've tried to reduce inflammation and protect the nerve. It hasn't worked. Let's try something else. If this doesn't work, we always have the opportunity to destroy it with a neurolytic agent or with surgery. I have our scope of practice. We can do soft tissue from the hip down. So I have used it for hips. I've used it for glute injuries, for sciatica. Knees do really, really well. Now, the high energy is really where I'm using that. So we haven't talked about that, but the high focused energy, it's very deep, gives a much deeper penetration, and I think works better on that. Like if you put EPAD or low energy on a kneecap or anywhere around there, it's very, very painful, and it really, really does hurt. I, for instance, had epicondylitis, and I've tried the low energy, the EPAD on it, and it hurts like a bear. Okay. But if you use the high energy, it's perfect, and it works phenomenal for that. So I'm a family members. I've done some upper body stuff, but not on patients.
Now, for the focus shockwave, do you do only shockwave combined? Do you start with radial and then do focused, or do you do still radial by itself now?
So very rarely do I do radial by itself. Typically, what I'll do is I combine them both. I'll do anywhere from the standard. I think my handpiece is set at 3,000 shocks, so I'll do 3,000 shocks at low energy, and then what I'll do is I'll bring the high energy out, and I'll do anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 shocks of the high energy. Takes a little bit longer, understood, but results are so much better. Patients appreciate it. We're charging more. Originally, our price line, I don't know, it varies throughout the country, but we were originally at $90 to do 1 foot or $125 to do bilateral. We increased our prices to $125 to do one and $160 to do bilateral. So, and I know it's much higher in some parts of the country.
That's for both focused and radial.
Yeah, both. Both. And I rarely do just sometimes I'll do just focused, depending upon the problem. So, for instance, if it was a hip or a knee, I'm going to just do focused. For an Achilles, I would do the low energy, the EPAT on the Achilles, the calf. When you get where that inserts into the back of that calcaneus or around the posterior part of the calcaneus, the focus works so much better, and it's a lot less painful because the snapping of the now they do have hand pieces with the low energy. I don't know if you're familiar, they have a new rubber hand piece that works pretty well. It doesn't go the depth that you would normally get with the metal hand pieces, but it does. You can use it on like bony prominences, which used to hurt very, very bad if you kind of put that on the back of the calcaneus.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you said, so even with the two of them, you're doing between 4 and 6. So how do you explain that to patients? So you're going to need 4 to 6 of these, they're a week apart. How do you explain it?
Yeah. So basically I tell them that the normal protocol, I said we do shockwave. Shockwave requires 4 to 6 treatments. We do the first 4 1 week apart, and it's required that you do all 4 of them. So if they're going to be out of town, or they're not going to not work with me, or they only want to do 2 or 3, then I'm going to try to talk them out of it. I said, you need to do the first 4. They're 1 week apart. I tell them each one is cumulative. They build on each other. You may see very little improvement after the first one, minimal improvement after the second. Usually by the 3rd or 4th one, they're starting to see some type of improvement. I tell them we usually, each time you come in, we'll actually get a percentage on where you're at. So we try to measure it. We can measure it, and we do have ultrasound in our office, and we do measure the thickness of the plantar fascia. I could be better at that. We're not using it as effectively as I could, but that is one way of doing it if the patient wants an objective measurement of it. But really, typically what we do is they see the improvement each time, and I tell them you got to do the first 4. After 4, we're going to take a 2-week break. If you're at 100% after 4, we may take a 1-month break. But my typical protocol, and I spell it out day 1. It's 4 treatments. You have to do all 4. Then we're going to take a 2-week break and then a 1-month break. Most people will fall in that 4 to 6 week period. If for some reason you can get it done in 4, great. It may take 7 or 8. So I'm kind of painting that picture in the very early days. People are on board. I'm honest with them and say I do so many of these that if we're at 4 or 5 and you're seeing 0% improvement, I may pull the plug on this here, because it doesn't work 100% of the time, and you could be one of those people that doesn't. So I want to be, totally honest with them in the beginning, and then as we're going, I'm not going to drag them along. I'm not going to drag you along for 10, 20 treatments and say, oh, guess this didn't work. And they understand and they appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, honesty is probably the best thing. Confidence, because I know what it can do. Honesty is great, and being able to say this is not working. We have to let's pull back here and let's talk about what other options we have.
Yeah. Now, Dean, all these other things that we have in our office, these night splints, these cam boots, the orthotics, where do those fall in terms of the way you treat this? Does everyone get those as well, or do you always just focus on the shockwave initially and then you add the other things later?
I do that. So I always fit them with some type of, I always evaluate shoes. I'll always fit them with some type of, depending upon the anatomy of the foot, fit them with some type of, probably off the shelf, whether it's a Power Step or Pure Stride inside the shoe. I'll evaluate the shoes. I give them a shoe list if I don't like the shoes that they're wearing. Night splints, if it's Achilles tendinosis, if it's plantar fasciitis, I'll discuss it with them. Some people have already tried night splints, so we don't, I'm not going to sell them another night splint. But I do mention it to them and tell them I think this would be a benefit to you. I'll show it to you. With Medicare, night splints are covered, so it's pretty much a no-brainer. If it's covered, they're okay with it. With other DME plans, we just tell them it's not covered. It says $75. We have the dorsal clamshell night splint. It probably costs us about $12. We charge them $75 for it, and they're happy with it.
Yeah.
It's easy to use, and they use it. I tell them if you can't sleep with it, then at least while you're watching television, have it on your foot. We also, UFOs fly out of our office. You can have UFOs in your office. They are just amazing. So what happens in South Florida, we have a lot of tile and wood. People walk around barefoot. So my first question is, do you walk around barefoot? Oh yeah, all the time. As are we going to stop that? So the girls come in, they'll sell them a pair of UFOs. And you put those things on your feet and they're sold. People come in, and then every time the women especially come in, and every time they're coming in, they're buying a different color, a different style, a different pair. And I also open it up and say, look, and they have a website, it's the same price as mine. If you don't see anything you want, or if you like them, just go on the website and buy them. I'm not pushing it on them, but I tell them the therapeutic benefits of the UFOs. I said, first of all, it's a foam technology that redistributes the weight away from your painful heel. I says it has a rocker sole that kind of takes the torque off of that plantar fascia when you're walking. So I explained the purpose of it. I go, plus it's the most comfortable thing you can put on, and it's a great recovery shoe. So I said, when you come home from work, get your shoes off and put them on. Change the position of your foot. I said, when you get out of bed to go to the bathroom, when you get up, it should always be on your foot. And I can't tell you how many people, the one thing they always send me, the best thing you ever sold me, Doc, was those UFOs. So they're pretty good. We do that. I don't usually engage in an anti-inflammatory. I tell them the first 2 treatments, we're trying to get that inflammatory effect. So I don't put them on anti-inflammatory. But if they're struggling with it, let's say, because I have found, and studies show, that you can do EPAT and shockwave and continue participating in your sports. So we have a lot of athletes that are training for Boston or doing triathletes and things like that. And what they love about you, if you're a sports medicine doctor, is not be the guy to tell them, you got to stop everything now. You can't do anything. So I have about 4 or 5 triathlete trainers that say, go see Dorfman because he won't make you stop. So I don't stop my athletes. I tell them, now, if it's somebody that's a weekend warrior or somebody that, says, I want to start running again, I go, now's not the good time. Let's get this fixed first. But if somebody's in the middle of their training, I keep them running, and I have seen them get better. Now, if they struggle with it, let's say it's a tennis player and they go and play tennis, I'll say, you know what? I like diclofenac, Voltaren. I find it really, really works for lower extremity. I use, daily XL, the extended release XR, 100 milligrams, and they love that. So what I do is I'm like, you stay on this one a day, every day with food while it's getting better. So I'm telling them that we've already gotten to the inflammatory phase. We're in the healing phase. The foot will get better, but if you're going to go out there and beat it up, or if you're going to stand for hours on it, you're going to draw the blood into that area. It's going to ache. So use the anti-inflammatory as needed, or take it on a regular basis, and then we'll wean you off of it, and then we'll heal the plantar fascia, or we'll heal the Achilles, the issues that we're trying to address, peroneal tendons. So we use it on everything on the foot that's musculoskeletal. In fact, the high energy shockwave right now, I have found that I've only got about a dozen patients, because I've only had it about a year and a half, but I have found that it works great for osteoarthritis. So your patients that are on the cusp have a degenerative joint disease. I'm not talking stage 4 where it's bone on bone, but that first, second, stage 1, 2, where they're just starting to show articular erosion. Instead of, I say to them, look, I can put in a cortisone shot in there. It'll help you for a short period of time, but it's erosive. It's going to erode the articular cartilage. So I'm giving you a short-term benefit, but a long-term destruction. I'm pushing you along in the area of destruction. So I tell them, but there is something that we use called high-energy focused shockwave, which has shown to regenerate, articular cartilage, reduce the inflammation. Anyway, I've got about a dozen people in the practice. Every one of them, 100%, except for one young man who I did 3 treatments and I lost him. I don't know what happened to him, has just rock and rolled with it. They're like really impressed now I tell them it's not going to reduce the bunion or the bump and things like that, but the pain level and the activity, they were back out running, they're back out doing Pilates, they're back out doing, and they're not, and I haven't given them a single cortisone shot, and they're very happy with it. Now, I can't tell you long-term because I've only been doing it for about a year and a half. Are these people going to be happy for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years or something like that? I don't know. But studies have shown using the knee, there's some papers written about the regenerative effects for osteoarthritis in the knee. So why not the first MPJ?
Yeah. Wow. Well, we covered a lot here, Dean. I appreciate your time and just sharing everything you're doing. I think it's going to be very helpful to those that are watching.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Yeah.